Hey everybody, welcome to the Marquez Says Show. I'm your host, Marquez Mosher, and this is my co-host, cohort, and eldest son, Austin Mosher. He and I always seem to bring out the feisty side of each other, and it leads to some very spirited conversations. There's never really any one topic. We see the world from many different perspectives, and sometimes we agree, and sometimes we don't. Either way, it gets very interesting, so sit back, relax, and have a bit of fun at our expense as we explore some of the most unexpected perspectives you'll ever hear about the world we live in. So, let's get started. Oh, look at him coming in. Oh, he's strutting. He looks so much better than when we normally walk in, so.
What can I say? I feel better when you're not here.
Ooh. Welcome, everybody, to the Marquez Says Show. I am Marquez. He is Austin.
Hello.
As you can tell, if you're watching this, we are in different locations. Sound might be a little bit different too, but I had to get on the road this week, so I am traveling, and Austin is holding down the fort at the studio. So I guess you would actually call it holding down the studio, because it's not a fort. Anyway, moving on.
Both. In spirit.
So today we're kind of be a little bit more lighthearted. We're just kind of, like I said, trying this out. We're going to start probably having guests on, so we wanted to make sure that we could use the Zoom feature, check out all the technical aspects of it. And then today's going to be kind of a joint thing. It's going to be talking about the think more, care more, live more, and then also how people incorporate like the self-care aspect of their lives and gratitude, because I found out when we were prepping this pre-production, Austin and I had kind of have a little bit of different view on that, where for example, I totally believe in having your mind right, and part of that is self-care and needing to make sure that you recharge and all of that. And that's a big part of the think more care more live more is about awareness, personal awareness, situational awareness, and understanding what your body is telling you, understanding what's going on in the world around you, what's going on in your situations. So self-care is part of that. Where I divulge from what a lot of people think about is that if it's a common thing, if you have it scheduled into your routine, if it's just something that you do normally, then I don't know how much of it that's self-care as much as that's just part of your routine. It's nothing special. It's nothing to recharge you. It's just there. So yeah. I don't know. I know that's where Austin kind of disagreed with me going,
I do disagree with you there. I feel like the idea that self-care has to be something out of the norm, which is kind of what you're doing when you assign the word special to it, is that it's not normal. I feel like that is destructive in a sense, because self-care is something that should be maintained all the time. It should be, or maybe not necessarily all the time, but to some level, it should be a present force in your life. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a vacation from your everyday struggles. It just means that it's something that you're doing to maintain yourself. No. Like, when you think of like taking your car to a mechanic or whatever, that's not a special thing. That's an essential thing. When you take it to go get an oil change or whatever, you wouldn't think of that as like some special treatment. That's just something you have to do to keep the vehicle running.
Yeah, that's true, and you do, but that is scheduled. It is actually scheduled in the overlife of the car.
Not if you're me.
Yeah, true, but it is expected. I mean, they actually write it down in a book that comes with the car. So.
That's true.
So
yeah, it is true. I think the analogy could go either way. But I do think that the greater picture of it, though, in the overall sentiment, is it shouldn't be something that you're thinking like, oh, I have to pencil this in. By then, it might be too late. And by then might end up, it's kind of a detriment negatively thinking of it that way. Because it's something then you're telling yourself, basically, well, my maintenance isn't as important as the responsibilities. No, when you can figure out a way to work in the maintenance to the responsibilities. They're not mutually exclusive. That could just be having a certain album that you like on in the background. Like for me, the music guy, that's a good one for me.
You're right. Self-care takes all sorts of different variations, all sort of, different acts and stuff. And I guess the big part of it is that what I fear is that if somebody is doing it regularly, or if it's set into a schedule, that it's not really recharging them as much as it could, because it's becoming part of their routine. It's becoming just something they do. And I'm afraid that it's going to get lost into their life and no longer act as the function at least as fully of being this, what the self-care is supposed to be about, which is, rejuvenating, resting, recharging, like you mentioned. That's what I guess I fear, is that if somebody's doing it so regularly, or if it's in a schedule, that the benefit of it is going to start to get lost, because you could actually take it to the point of, oh my goodness, it's scheduled for every, say, Thursday morning, and if something happens and you don't get to do it, or there all of a sudden it's a conflict because you have to do something else, it's actually just adding stress, because you're figuring out, how am I going to be able to reschedule this, or how am I going to be able to fit this into my routine or with the rest of my schedule for the week? And that just defeats the point. That defeats the whole point of being able to have that self-care. So you're right, the scheduling of it is kind of necessary, because you don't want it to happen. You don't want to miss it. But on the other hand, there's also the impromptu self-care is probably what I lean more towards, where you find yourself with an opportunity, do it, because you're going to need it. You're going to need that bubble bath, that album, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think that depending on what your self-care method is, you could get sidetracked from it, and then you could end up, I guess, potentially adding stress to your day because you missed it. But the hope is that you've done it so consistently, you're in a better state to where you're not gonna, no tears over spilled milk. So it's like, this one thing is like, yeah, I missed it, but I do this so regularly, I'm in a healthy mind state. This doesn't upset me.
Yeah, actually,
I will figure this out later.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And that's what I think is more so the routine. I think that what you and our disconnect is that you look at self-care, or at least what I'm hearing, I'm not telling you that you look at it like this, but from what I'm hearing, is that it sounds like you're viewing self-care as a vacation, when I think there should be two separate things. Self-care is something that's normal, and you work it into your day-to-day, or you try to. It's just something that kind of happens. And then to recharge your batteries, like you're saying, is if you get accustomed to it, and that sort of lifestyle, but you need to recharge your batteries, then you take a vacation. You step away from your normal life, but you step away from everything. And that's how I would see it.
And you're right. It's not so much just a vacation. It doesn't have to be anything big or major or anything. I just want to make sure that when people talk about self-care, that it's something that's the point of it is to make sure that it's realigning themselves with whatever maybe belief system, whatever, that. And that part is, that's the part where I think sometimes people forget, where if they're going to just go get their nails done, get a haircut, or just go hang out and go golf, or whatever the case is, while that is an escape, it's kind of something that's great for them to be able to do, and it lets off pressure and all that stuff. Is it really aligning themselves with getting themselves back into, what they're thinking about, their long-term goals? That's the part where I think of self-care as maybe I give self-care a little bit more emphasis of, hey, I think it's so important that it's because of the fact that when you do it, you're actually getting yourself back in alignment somehow. And I think some people, and maybe that's what I'm getting or feeling, is that I see so much of, I'm taking my bubble bath and I'm doing my self-care, or I'm going to go to the batting cages, or I'm going to go play golf and stuff, or whatever the case is. It's like, well, when you're doing that, how is it really helping? How is it really helping you focus, get back into alignment with yourself? How is it, where you're recapturing the energy that you're looking to do? It may not. It's just a break. It's just they're taking it as just a break. And that's where I'm like, well, that's just a break. That's not necessarily self-care. That's just, giving yourself time, some time. And
that's true. For some people, a break is self-care, though.
It can be.
But on the flip, though, because I agree that and a lot of times people don't use that productively, though. They use it to step away, but the whole time they're dreading what they have to come back to, and in which case they're not really helping themselves. They're just stressing themselves out and adding an extra gap of time between what they need to do, and that becomes a problem.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent observation, because
a lot of people don't actually use that time. And then again, I think that would be a misuse of self-care. I agree that that's how most people look at it, and I don't like to look at it that way. I don't want to be not centered at any point in my day, which is why I look at self-care as being normal.
Yeah.
So I try to maintain myself throughout the day, because I'm trying to do so many things, especially in this quarantine and with other stuff going on. Like, I need to stay busy, otherwise I'm going to lose my mind. So I'm always doing stuff. I'm driving just for fun. listening to stuff, going to places I haven't been before, taking new streets, trying new food places, doing lots of errands, just doing everything that I don't normally do that I should do, like the responsibilities aspect, doing them, wrapping up my album, wrapping up or helping somebody else with their album. I just finished a rock album.
One thing for all you listeners, for everybody out there, we're gonna have that drop soon. So just putting that out there, make sure get excited because that his album will be dropping soon.
That's true, very soon. I'm trying to get it out early.
No, let's not put any dates on it.
Okay, all right. We won't put any dates on it. But yeah, like, and then I just finished the mix and master of this other rock album, turned that in. So I'm just doing stuff all the time, and I don't want to be off center. Yeah. So I'm just working things into it. Like a good thing is just waking up in the morning, drinking coffee, like to start the day, taking a shower, just getting up, right, and then just kind of looking at those things that might not necessarily be fun, but kind of changing the perspective on it and just like, okay, well, I'm out of bed now. I could be in bed right now, but I'm out of bed, and that's a good thing because if I'm in bed, I'm not doing anything, and there's a lot I have to do. So, boom, first step, and that part's easy. So that's like one thing, and just the being happy about that fact and just moving, and it is in a sense to me self-care. Now, what I do after that might be kind of punishing or grueling, but at least I took that first step, and that I'm excited enough.
And some people, when you brought that up, part of came to mind is some people that may have mental health conditions and such, where getting out of bed is difficult. Whatever they're dealing with, whatever their challenges and obstacles are. So you're right. Some things we take for granted. Those are things that other people cannot. And then the self-care part takes a whole different meaning because for them it may be something even smaller, but that's what helps them be able to take the next step and move forward in their day, their life, and such. And that's part of what I was talking about with that think more is the awareness. What we're talking about right now is the awareness. It's our own personal awareness. It's the situational awareness. It's understanding that, what if we're not in alignment and our minds aren't right, then we're not going to treat other people that way. We're not going to treat other people the way that we should or that they deserve. And all of that, and especially the part about sometimes being aware of this and thinking more isn't overthinking anything. It's just sitting back and going, what should I be doing? Should I be doing anything at all? Like you just talked about. Maybe I shouldn't be doing anything. Maybe it really should just be sitting here and zoning out, listening to music or the breathing, meditation, whatever that is. And it's getting back into a place where you can then move forward. And in my case, when we're talking about the think more, care more, live more, is start thinking about the caring aspect of it, which is that's really is that simple. There's no extra layers to it like with the think more. It's just try to be nice. It's just try to be kind. It's trying to take those things so that when you're in alignment and you see someone else having a bad day, realizing maybe if I smile, that'll be something that'll help them. Maybe just a little act of kindness. True. Open the door, help somebody with their groceries. I mean, whatever it is, just something so simple that all of a sudden their day has changed. And that kindness can go so far when you don't even realize what just a small act of kindness can do. I
agree. And it's infectious, and it'll carry on, and hopefully that person does something kind, and it just snowballs.
Right. And people I think underestimate that because we get so caught up in our days. We get so caught up doing all the stuff we have to do. We're moving forward. We're hustling and bustling, which ties back into sometimes you need to just take a break. Whether it's the self-care, just being, aware of the fact that, hey, I need a break. But then the kindness part of and a lot of big part of it is that if you find yourself in the situation where you can't necessarily do anything kind or make the situation better, well, just don't make it worse. And that ties into the awareness part of the think more of like, realize, hey, I can't be kind here, so I'm not going to do anything that would make it worse. Because so often we're not thinking about that. It slips our mind, and then next thing you know, we say something, and you're like, I shouldn't have said that. I really shouldn't have. And then hopefully you apologize, but then a lot of people have a problem with admitting that they were wrong or made a mistake. And now it's snowballing. And you're back to a lack of awareness. it's all intertwined, and that part of, I guess some of that leads into the next kind of part of the conversation of the gratitude portion, where I'm all for being thankful for things. Again, it's kind of like, I'm a little frustrated where it's becoming I feel like it's becoming trite, where the self-care thing and the gratitude and the attitude of gratitude and what are you grateful for, and everything is possible if you're grateful for the things you have, and all of that is true, but I think when we overuse it, it becomes like a Hallmark card. It becomes like something that we just don't pay attention to.
I 100% agree. And I see a lot of times people like, oh, self-care, or self-care. And a lot of the times it feels like they're trying to sell something, like themselves or their attitude or something.
Yeah.
Like whenever
Lifestyle.
I see it coming from a brand or like a celebrity or like an Insta model or something like that. No offense to Insta models or anything like that, but it comes off that way sometimes, and that seems what is the word? I've used it to describe politicians.
Fake,
and,
just kind of
like
disingenuous.
Yeah, but the other one, the one that I used when. I won't say it because
I know you like disingenuous
on the show. I can't remember. It is disingenuous. It's not preachy. Well, it is preachy, but preachy's not the word.
Right.
I'm completely blanking on it.
Yeah, now
it's like when you're forcing something down somebody's throat for your own gain to get them to come aboard your train.
Right.
That's what. There's a word for it. I use it all the time.
Hey, welcome to my life, dude. But with it, this happens all the time. When I have the word slips out, and it's like I've used it a million times. My vocabulary, et cetera, et cetera. So, hey, I feel you right now. But yes, but you're right.
That wasn't as poignant as I wanted. I could have used one singular word and summed it all up.
but I agree with you, because that's where it's, you see all the memes and you see the posts, and I'm just kind of like, well, first of all, I mean, the reminders are good. What? Sorry.
Pandering. Okay. That was the word. Sorry, pandering.
Yeah, and it's good to have those reminders, but like you said, when it gets over and over and over again. And why are you telling us, the part about like self-care when you're taking care of yourself? Is it a reminder to others, or are you just telling us what you're doing? Like you talked about. And the gratitude part, over and over and over again. Yes, we need the reminders to step back and realize what we have. Be happy with what you have, and don't necessarily want. I mean, you are, and that's a good part of it. I even stopped myself there when you say, don't necessarily want more. What do you mean by that? Because in order to move forward, and there's nothing wrong with wanting more, depending on what that more is, because that means hopefully you're learning, you're growing. I am not satisfied with who I am. I want to be better. Well, it's hard to say that I'm grateful for who I am, and at the same time go, but I want to be better. So how grateful can you be for yourself if you know that you want more?
I'll tell you how grateful you could be. So I think about that all the time, and I struggle with that. I am grateful to be me right now, because the me right now is going to keep being the me right now until I do something that is me great. And I keep doing that, and that's why I'm grateful for the things I get to do that keep me grounded and centered.
Right.
Because every single one of those successive actions will eventually lead to me changing the world. Yeah. That's just how it is.
I got you.
And and that is what I see. I might be changing the world right now. I might not. It might be tomorrow. It might be 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. But if I keep doing what I'm doing and I stay in a relatively me mind state, it doesn't have to necessarily be positive or negative, but if I stay me and I'm grateful that I get to be me, then someday I'm gonna do the thing that I want to do. But you have to put the work in too,
right?
But you can't put the work in as well as you should do to achieve whatever it is you're trying to do, unless you have some sort of stabilized center within you, something that feels assured, something that feels cared for. Even if you're under attack from all directions, right, you have to have some sort of center within.
Yeah, and that makes sense. That I can see how you can be, it's almost being grateful for the experiences that have led up to this point, because that's what created you. Those experiences, the decisions you made, the lessons you've learned, that's what you can be grateful for, because they're the things that have shaped you, and they're going to shape your future, depending on, like you said, the work that you put in. So I can understand that part about being grateful for who you are, for what you have, but don't let it be a crutch or an excuse to not want more, to be better. And I'm not necessarily talking about the money or material things, but just the ability to understand that while it's great now and you're grateful for the things you have, let's not forget that you can move forward and be grateful for the challenges. You can be grateful for the fact that there's challenges coming, that there's obstacles coming, that you welcome them, you embrace them, because you know that that's how you're going to grow, and you're going to break out of your comfort zone and hopefully not be complacent. So that gratefulness can take on all sorts of forms. And I just feel like it gets wasted a lot of times with people just...
I totally agree. Like, I feel like self-care, especially that phrase nowadays, is so abused. And people use it, at least from what I see in my generation, on Instagram especially, because, it's all about the picture platform. They'll post a picture of themselves doing something that they think, is like, it's self-care. It's generally seen as self-care. And then they're using it to, like, advertise themselves, whether it is to make themselves feel better or to look like they're doing something. But it's not actually self-care. It's like they're marketing themselves. It's like people think of themselves as brands, especially anytime they go on to social media.
Thank you for listening to the Marquez Says Show here with Marquez Mosher. Oh,
right, yeah. But we're telling you the truth. Nah, we're real. Forget all that other stuff. But the point is, when everybody sees themselves as a brand, that could be good or bad.
Right.
It means that you can curate your image, and you're going to put out things that might be actually positive. But it also means that those same positive things that you're putting out can be subjected to being basically said, oh, well, that's not authentic. And then it creates a culture like what I'm doing right now, is where I'm calling out people that are being disingenuous with self-care. Do I know? No, I don't. This could actually be working for them, and I could just be a hater right now. But you can generally tell the difference between people who are actually doing self-care and people who want to look like they're doing self-care because it gives them something to do.
Yeah. And I agree. And it's a big difference, because a lot of times, I mean, I look at pictures of, say, April and I when we're on a cruise, and you just see these grins on our faces. And if we take that picture and, you see the water in the background or whatever the case, and we're like, hey, we're having a good time and stuff like that, that was really just because we're having a great time and we're just sharing that. And there is no real ulterior motive to it. Whereas sometimes I think of... You're right. The image that comes back to my mind is always kind of somebody usually like in the bubble bath. And it's like you're taking a picture of yourself with a wine glass in a bubble bath, you're stuff. Wouldn't you probably been more relaxed if you didn't have a camera and you weren't trying to angle it and get the look right? And,
right.
I have a hard time. And the same thing when you see with guys, it's not just girls, with guys, if they're showing or hunting or some sports thing, it's like that just doesn't seem like it was. It seems more contrived, and maybe it's still your self-care, because, the before and after of it, but it just seems like you're really trying hard to show us that you're taking care of yourself. And if you weren't actually on social media at that time, I would know you may be taking care of yourself.
Yeah, contrived is a good word for that. Again, it's tough, because I feel like for you and me,
right,
that's not how we would prefer self-care. I know the happiest times of my life are when I took less pictures. There's a flip to that, because sometimes that's not entirely true. But for the most part, that's pretty true. It's not so much that I wasn't taking the pictures, it's that I didn't stop to think about it.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. That was what I was going to say.
That's nice. Obviously there are times where you want to take pictures. My point is the time that I didn't feel like I had to show it.
Right.
Like, and if I get a picture, it's for me generally most of the time.
Yeah.
And it feels like what you say, contrived is a good word.
I think it was like you're capturing the moment in your head, which is the main spot you want it. Because that, of course, is where you're supposed to for the self-care part of it, and even the gratitude part of it. It's in your mind. It's in your head. That's why we've talked about, get your mind right. I've always told you guys that, since you were youngsters, and I've used it, and it was a little derivative of something that my dad said. It's like, get your mind right. And gratitude can do it, because it gets you to have a different perspective, to realize what you may be complaining about or what you're upset about, other people have been desiring. That's what they want. So be grateful. And that's the part that I like about it, the perspective part of it. But the self-care part ties in the same way. It's meant for you to get your mind right. It's meant for you to get aligned and such. And if you're concentrating or worrying about having to take a picture or prove it or set it up or something, I have a hard time believing that it's giving the full benefit of what you're looking for. And that ties in that the last part of that think more, care more, live more. The live more is about doing. And what you just said about what you do and the times that you didn't take pictures per se because you were enjoying it, you were in that moment, you were living. And the live more is about just that, taking the kindness part and the awareness part, and then moving through that door. I always use the door analogy that, sometimes you don't want to go through a door if you don't know what's on the other side. But sometimes that's exactly why you should go through the door, because you don't know what's on the other side. So don't be scared of it. Move through. Ask for the promotion. Change your haircut. Ask for the raise. Ask for the sale. Whatever. Don't answer a question that isn't yours to answer, because you need to live. You need to take chances. You need to move forward. And it doesn't mean be reckless. It doesn't mean be, not thinking about it. And it doesn't mean not to care about what other people think, because I do think you should care about what other people think, only to the degree that it helps you be more aware of your faults or your positives and strengths. It doesn't mean to make decisions based on it. Certainly not. Definitely. I don't think you should make decisions based on what other people think, but it's data. It's information. You once told me all information is good. And I've thought about it, thinking, going, is it? Is it really? And I still think, I'm not sure I believe that all information is good, but I certainly think you should lean towards that. And that's part of that live more part of it, is that you don't know. Live. Don't be scared. Move forward. Try to do something. And in order to do that correctly, you probably need your self-care. You probably need your gratitude. You certainly need your think more with the awareness and the of stuff. And to make it all worthwhile, if you don't do it with kindness, it's probably not going to be worth it. Especially depending on what you believe in. Karma, whatever, things of that sort. What goes around comes around. It's and that's the part I think I feel most strongly about it. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I agree with everything you said. The only thing I disagree with is all information is good, and it is worth knowing all information. And we have, it's a sidebar. This is about something that has literally nothing to do with this point, but it's something that he said. No,
actually it does. Austin, what I was going to say is the information about what we talked about. If you can't make a situation better, don't say anything. You may have information, but it may not make...
but that's not the same as having information.
But you
can have more information and still make the same decision, but it's never... it's always better to operate with more information.
Generally speaking.
From a logistical standpoint, not necessarily from...
Well, I would generally say that. Yes, I would generally agree with that. I think there's some times where if your information is not going to make the situation better and it won't add to the conversation, it's kind of like asking question for question's sake. There's an argument to be made about asking questions for question's sake, just so you understand and stuff. But there's also the counter argument of that you don't necessarily want to ask questions if the answer isn't going to be relevant. Now, you may not know if the answer is going to be relevant, but there is that point about where
you never know what's going to be relevant.
Yeah, and so there's that counter argument about why are you asking questions just to be talking? That kind of thing.
That's true.
Or are you actually asking questions to learn something, to find out what it is? And that's, I think I take that same approach with the information part where, yes, generally speaking, almost all the time, yes, having all the information or more information is better. But there is also the aspect of, well, sometimes it's not, because that information isn't relevant and it's not going to make any difference whatsoever. So, now the problem is that can be subjective. That can be subjective.
Yeah,
and
it's very subjective. But I totally agree with what you said, though. People asking questions just to hear themselves talk, or people actually wanting to learn. And I think the thing the neutralizer that makes it no longer subjective is if you genuinely want to learn, then it is objectively okay. But if you are just doing it to talk, then yeah, I mean, you might unintentionally get something good out of it, but that wasn't where your head or your heart was at in the first place.
And that ties in with what we were talking about. You're obviously not aware of your situation or yourself if you're just talking and not even realizing that it's just to fill space or make yourself feel better. That's
oh god. And self-awareness is a whole we should do
absolutely.
A whole other episode
And that's the one aspect of the think more, is that part of it is self-awareness, and which ties into the self-care, because if you start finding yourself drifting more and more away, or you're getting more and more resentful, or you're having more and more internal struggles, guess what? You probably need some self-care, because you need to get back in alignment with yourself. You need to be able to get back into that whatever energy you want to be, whether it's religious, spiritual, whatever the case is, whatever it is for you. Your mind's not right, and your body's telling you your mind's telling you. And a lot of it, I think, comes from the fact that you don't have the kindness, and the kindness falls into the line with the gratitude. If you're kind to other people or kind to yourself, then you can be grateful for what you have, and be grateful, like we just talked about, just recently. So
definitely.
It's amazing how all of these things kind of tie in. In my mind, visually, I think of, like, there's the think more, and then in between it, there's the self-care. And then there's the care more, and then before the live more, there's the gratitude. And then there's the live more. So it's almost like a line that you can draw right through all 5 of those points.
Could you draw that? Do you have a whiteboard, like a little one with markers?
Exactly. I'll go into Doodly something, do a little video for it and put that up on the website. Be like,
I want to see you do the Disney Channel writing, where they used to do on the old school channel, where they used to do the
magic.
Yeah,
Disney
I want
magic.
to see you do that right now with that chart.
Yeah. So, but that's how I visually see it, and I keep coming back to it with the and hoping that more and more people see or are exposed to the think more, care more, live more, or I might be starting to quote unquote rebrand it to think, care, live more. I don't know, but I just want people to see it, and it incorporates all aspects, or at least most aspects, of what people believe in, but it just puts it into a different perspective. And that's the biggest thing that I want to push onto things. That's why the business is called Vision Perspective Group. It's just literally vision perspective, to see things differently. I mean, from a different angle, different point. So, but that's so I guess in some ways we still agree a little bit on the self-care and the gratitude, but you can see where we also diverge, and I hope listeners kind of take it from it and realize that, the best of both worlds.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you do regardless of what any of us said, is true self-care is doing it for yourself, right? So just do it, you got to do it for yourself.
Yeah, no. That was
I know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was looking at it from that perspective. Yeah, I guess I normally would kind of want to. It feels like we usually tie it up better, but we really didn't have anything at that point about where we could go with it after this. So I guess maybe this is probably a good point. This episode's a little shorter than normal, but I guess that's probably fine, huh? Sure, why not?
It feels tied up to me. I don't feel like there's any loose ends.
Well, in that case, you know what? Think more, care more, live more. And remember, you can change your life. We can change the world, one decision at a time. Anything else, Austin?
No, that's good.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Till next time.